Today, Homeworthy takes you inside 4 boldly expressive London homes where creativity and individuality are center stage. Along the River Thames, fashion designer Wiggy Hine March welcomes us into her playful, pattern-filled home that's layered with British charm and a rich textile legacy.
Above the mantelpiece, I have this piece of artwork that may or may not stay here, but it's certainly staying here for the moment. It involves a lot of people have very mixed feelings about this, mainly because it could possibly be coming from a children's Sunday school. Potentially, I'm not trying to insult obviously the artist, but I really love it. I love the depth of this piece.
Painter Heidi Becker opens her home and studio, a raw, art-filled space shaped by canvases, books, and a life devoted to creativity.
I think that you'll find that many people in the visual arts, certainly painters, certainly all the painters I've known and sculptors, where what surrounds us is really not to do with a kind of appeal of a sort of regulated house. It's a workspace. It's like a big gut where things happen, where you make things happen. They're not defined.
Then fashion designer Coco Fennell reveals her theatrical residence, a fantastical mix of vintage curiosities, circus inspiration, and fearless self-expression.
I've always loved like Americana and Elvis and fairgrounds and circuses and neon, and so like everything in this house kind of represents that. And because I used to be in that warehouse apartment, it was all brick walls, so you really could just like throw anything together and it looked great.
And finally, in the heart of the city, interior designers Sophie Garland and Freddy Garland of Freddy's Flowers shares their joyful, pattern-rich family home where bold color and craft define every room.
These candles are by somebody, a really fantastic ceramicist in the area, actually, Bettina Ceramica. And I got those for my birthday last year. Love those. Then also actually this very sweet little pot by Freddie's cousin, Alice Garland. She makes very nice, pretty little ceramic pieces and vases and jugs.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Today we're in London, stepping inside the home of fashion designer Wiggy Hine March. Set right on the Thames River, this vibrant, character-filled home is a joyful celebration of print, texture, and British charm. From a coastal treasure box dining room to a countryside-inspired guest bathroom, every space feels playful, layered, and deeply personal. Originally owned and designed by renowned textile designer Kath Kidson, the home carries a rich creative legacy, one that Wiggy has made entirely her own. So come with us as we explore this extraordinary West London home where fashion, textiles, and storytelling meet. To watch Wiggy's home tour ad-free, where she gives us a masterclass on how to decorate chic children's bedrooms, scan the QR code on screen, or visit homeworthyplus.com for access to all of our latest episodes ad-free and to receive other exclusive membership perks.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Wiggy Hine March. Welcome to my home in London. Come in and take a look.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes. opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi, I'm Wiggy Hine March. I'm a fashion designer, and welcome to my home in London, England. Previously, we were living in an area of London which was very kind of family-centric. We had 2 children in Chelsea, and we had a beautiful, lovely little terraced house there in the heart of Chelsea. But we soon outgrew it, and we really needed more space, hence the fact we moved to this kind of quite a family area of Parsons Green. I knew that wasn't quite what we were all about as a family, and as soon as the children were old enough, I knew we were going to move to a different area. During the time that we actually lived there, I would take long walks along the River Thames. We're very lucky to be situated quite close to the Thames. And during these walks, I would come across this beautiful little enclave of London that I wasn't actually very familiar with. And as you walk along the Thames, they had these pretty little river gardens and beautiful and sort of very antiquated, gorgeous houses. It felt like you were almost in the countryside of London. It's an area I had never seen before or knew existed. And I said once or twice to my husband, this is where we're going to end up. This is where we're going to live. And much to his chagrin, he said there's no way that he was moving even further out of London. But I reassured him that actually, if he had a chance to go see this beautiful area of London, he would, I'm sure, agree with me. We'd recently spent some time away in the Bahamas where our children had gone to school, and we're coming back to the UK. And I knew at that stage that I had a bit of a different feeling and idea of how I wanted to live in London. And for me, Parsons Green really wasn't it. He said to me unequivocally, please, when we go back to England, don't go looking for houses. I think he knew that I was on the search to move us out of that area. Within a week of returning, I'd already booked a house tour to come and see this house. He came along, but very begrudgingly. We took a very long and luxurious tour of this wonderful house. And he didn't say a word to me whilst we were going from room to room. We, in fact, left in silence, sat in the car in front of this house and paused. I didn't turn on the engine of the car. We just sat there. And within about 30 seconds, he just simply turns to me and says, we're going to have this house, aren't we? And we spent the next few months trying to purchase this house. And fortunately, we were up against lots of people for the house, and we were lucky enough to finally win it. It really literally felt like winning the jackpot. So I think this is a really important vignette. When you come in to the house for the first time, what you're really doing is you're seeing this really wonderful symmetrical sort of scene. And I really like how this very grand, beautiful sideboard really anchors the space. The beautiful sort of almost bird's eye marble on top gives it a real grandiosity, and I like all the flaky paint as well. This came from Robert Kime. I put 2 Paolo Moschino lamps here, and I think with the colour of this room, which is this kind of interesting ochre colour, the white bases of this kind of modernist Roman style urn lamp base really sort of pops out. I started collecting actually lots of porcelain, which I have piles all over the place. The idea is we are going to do a blue and white mixed antique wall of plates here, which I think will frame this space really nicely. Because it's a long, narrow room, to be able to bounce light coming from either end of the room is really important. So we have these 2 matching pairs of antiqued mirrored glass here, which really does create a lot more space in the room. This bay window, I think, is such, again, another beautiful vignette that frames our garden and the river garden really nicely. I've upholstered actually these lovely old X-bench little seats. The idea is you could sit here if you wanted to, when it's not covered obviously in coffee table books and porcelain, and you can sit and maybe work and look out the window. Another really favourite part of my house is this little tiny bureau. I found this locally in a beautiful antiques shop that I drop into every now and again, and I always go there with the intention of buying nothing, and I always come out with something. This was something I couldn't stop thinking about. I knew I had to get it, and it's funny to find such a little diminutive bureau, but what I liked about it was the patina of the wood. I like to see the marks and the sort of how it's been lived with. And it has a great little secret compartments here. I use this as a bit of almost like a space where I can collect and put more of my little miniature collections. And if you see closely in here, I've collected lots of antique lead toys. That really brings me a lot of joy. But this is where I sit. I write thank you letters, which I'm a big fan of. I think thank you letters are an aging old dying art, and I think it's really important. So I keep all my stationery in there, and I make it my point to write thank you letters every time I've been lucky enough to be invited somewhere. And down there's also the present drawer, so don't go looking in there because your present might be in there. I like some curiosities, so things with a bit of humour. I really liked him. I found him in this fantastic shop called Ridge and Ridge, and in there he has a nice combination between newly upholstered pieces and funny quirky bits like this. Again, when I looked for a side table here, it's having the patina and all the old marks where people have put their glasses down and drinks over the years. I really think that is a lovely addition to the room. The fabrics that we have in this room, nice combination of usually American interior designers. So we have Lisa Fine textiles in here, we have Peter Dunham textiles, and I think they all work together. They have a kind of slightly either a tribally look or an antiqued, almost chinoiserie kind of a look, and I think those really work nicely together. This was actually a custom-made sofa, and so we're able to be quite specific about how the filling was, how it all sort of felt when you're sitting on it, how we like to sit. So that was a really important piece that the whole room began with. So this sofa in itself was the starting point to the whole design of the space. Above here we have a Sidney Albertini painting. Now it is kind of strange when you look at it because you think, why on earth have they hung that not directly over the sofa? The reason being is this is actually quite a strangely shaped room, and I wanted to make sure that the sofa was directly opposite the fireplace. That is the centre of the room. Unfortunately, the way the panelling works, it doesn't allow for that because we have a run of panelling along here that doesn't make it symmetrical. We tried it actually hanging over the other way, it didn't work. So actually, this doesn't seem to work on paper, but I think it does in reality. And something so vibrant like this is a really nice juxtaposition to all the traditional features of this room. And what I particularly like is it's been painted on craft paper, so it's very, very naive. These two bits of three-dimensional art we actually inherited from the previous owners. They were kind enough to leave them behind, and as you can see, it works really nicely with this big piece. A reading light like this, I think, adds a bit more texture to the wall. We have this tortoiseshell. We have a tortoiseshell lampshade here, which really complements all the other pieces in the room. It adds almost like a bit of animal print, which I think is kind of a neutral. This center table here, this is called the Cock Pen table. It is by Sybil Colfax and Fowler. It was an amazing design because if you cinch down, you actually look at the base of it, it's got a really interesting cage-like structure, and I like how glossy it is. Again, it anchors all these other colours here in the room. we have martini tables. Now, these are very useful tables to have because you can literally, if you have a long sofa like this and nowhere to put your cocktail in the evening, you literally can stick it here, and it's an unobtrusive way to keep your cocktail close by without having to reach forward. And I think that's actually the ultimate in decadence. Over here we have two tiny little chairs. Now, not very useful if you're sitting in there day to day, but for me, I wanted two little chairs that if we're having a dinner party, having friends over, they can sit here quite comfortably with a cocktail, and we can move them around the room anytime that we need to. And an inlaid antique small table to the side, which meant that you can also put your little cocktail there as well. Behind here, we hide all the things that we utilize for our fireplace. So it's in a nice old antique trough. This was a piece that I absolutely fell in love with. I discovered it on Lawford's, which is a bit of a weakness for me. I love antiques, and it's the first thing that I do. If I want to relax, I scan antiques websites. This originally came as one large housekeeper's cupboard. The top part had beautiful doors that were glazed, and inside was a sort of duck egg blue that was all flaky paint. It was absolutely ideal, and I fell in love with it. The problem was when we put it in place, it felt too domineering in the room, and it meant that we could not have this really important mirror that does bounce a lot of light off of the room. So that was lifted off. It's now kept in a warehouse, but we were left with the issue of it had no top. So we had a custom-made top made in the same vein, in the same keeping as the antique part. It's very hard to match it precisely, but you can literally get up this close and not be disturbed by this new top that we had made. Above the mantelpiece, I have this piece of artwork that may or may not stay here, but it's certainly staying here for the moment. It involves a lot of people have very mixed feelings about this, mainly because it could possibly be coming from a children's Sunday school, potentially. I'm not trying to insult, obviously, the artist, but I really love it. I love the depth of this piece. I love you can look at it from any different angle and you'll find something new lurking underneath there. And I love anything in a Perspex box. I really think that creates something rather fun. And I don't think you would ever expect to find a piece like this in such a traditionally panelled room. The previous owners, Kath Kidston, had a fantastic original frame from a Walt Disney Mickey Mouse movie above here. And I loved how unusual that was to have something that you weren't expecting to be there. So that was a really nice touch. I collect things on my travels. This was my latest thing that I brought back. I've just been traveling through Southeast Asia and was introduced very much to the Buddhist faith there. There's some really wonderful teachings in it. And so for me, bringing a Buddha back to the UK was a nice reminder and a nice memory of a wonderful family trip. When we were touring around the house for the very first time, what really struck me when we first walked in here was how joyful it was. It was filled with colour and interesting artwork, really mixing the traditional with some contemporary. In fact, the previous owner of this house was a very well-known interior designer called Kath Kidston, and she is absolutely expert with colour and really juxtaposing interesting things next to one another, and we fell in love with it the moment we walked in. In fact, so much so, we lived with her interiors for approximately 6 or 7 years until we decided to embark on a refurb. And we were really toying with trying to keep, particularly this room, as it was, which was a neon, almost coral colour, which is not usually a colour that you would immediately think of painting a drawing room, but it really was wonderful in it. The way that it would reflect light on your face, it just put you in a good mood when you're in here. So it really was hard for me to change that aesthetic. But when the time came, I realised if you're going to all this expense to really refurbish a place, it needs to sort of feel like it has your own stamp on it, as much as I loved what Kath had already done to the house. But the bones of this house was so good that we didn't really have to do too much. We just wanted to keep it feeling like a country house in London. For me, having lived in America, I really wanted to bring into this space a feeling of America, but with an English person's point of view. And so, again, colour, texture, clashing of prints, that was very important. And I do think that I have incorporated with the house a kind of American way of approaching design, which is, in my opinion, focusing on 3 to 4 main colours per room and really layering on those different prints, tones of that colour, and really playing with a very certain directional look. And as you move from room to room in my house, you will see that 3 to 4 colour rule embraced. So we're here in our dining space, which we actually like to call the morning room. And this was probably the biggest transformation of all the rooms that we attempted in the house. As you can see, there's trellising all around, floor to ceiling. It was a really, it was a labour of love, really. I am familiar with this kind of wall treatment just from living in America, but in the UK, this is not really something that is that typical. So I had to work with some carpenters, some joiners to create this space. And what made it even more complicated, it's not perfectly square. When you're dealing with millions and millions of little squares, you can imagine the mathematical concept behind doing all these panels. But for me, what I wanted to do is bring the outside in and make this feel like a home that had a big connection with the garden and the exterior space. The way that the house works is you have double aperture front and back. It's actually quite a narrow space. So you do have a lot of access to outdoor visibility at all times. We had to integrate a bar. I'm not really a bar person unless you create something like this. And for me, it was bringing a traditional aspect that was a way to be hospitable. This is a lovely place to come and stand. When you're bringing guests into the house, you can stand here, get them a drink, you have the fire going. It's a really convivial space to actually entertain. So this was a really nice little vignette, I thought. This top of this bar, we wanted to create a brass bar, but actually this is a very clever paint. It mimics actually brass. It even has the patina, so you have your fingerprints on it, which makes it very, very, very genuine sort of feel to it. And beneath here, of course, we have the fridge and all the accoutrements to make delicious cocktails. So this was a wonderful little space that was all about entertaining and guests. Our gas fire was expertly designed for us, and to have the feel of a real fire. And so there's ash, there's all sorts of things that makes that feel like it's a true fire. And we can switch it off when we want to go to bed and feel very, very safe and secure. The main focus of this room really is the Cox chandelier. And what's so clever about it, it is very, very realistic up close. You can choose how you patina the leaves to be exactly how you want it. So for me, I wanted quite naturalistic and that you could see a little bit of the changing of the leaves. So that's a very special piece in this room, and it really does anchor the space. Beneath the chandelier, we have actually a beautiful antique pedestal table, but I have covered this with a glass top and plenty of different layering of tablecloths underneath. The reason I've done this is so that we could really use this almost as a hall area. And if we ever want to turn this into more of a dining area, we can remove the tablecloths and this becomes a very convivial dining space. But for the majority of the time, we use this space for entertaining and as an extension to the entry when you walk in the door. And of course, you can then look through into the garden and have the doors open in the summer, which is a lovely touch. Above the mantelpiece, we have this beautiful piece, which is a lovely convex mirror from Jam. And Jam is a bit of a weakness of mine. JAMB is a beautiful shop, and they have wonderful lighting, which we can see also here on the wall sconces here at the back. I love the gilding on here and the fact it's actually all antiqued. This is a new piece, but very much looks like an antique find. On the top here, my lacquer collection, which I'm slowly collecting over the years. I love these pieces. The chinoiserie aspect to this room really lifts the space. Framed on the walls, we have these beautiful antique playing cards, and they're on each four corners of the room and really give a certain decoration without shouting too loud, which I think is really nice, not spoiling this wonderful jewel box of a room. Custom-made thick curtains are a bit of a thing that we have in the UK. I actually don't have many curtains in the house. In fact, I think these could almost be the only pair apart from up in my daughter's room. And so I really wanted to make sure they were incredibly special indeed. The fabric is Name Same, which is, some of these fabrics in here are also Name Same on the chairs and the cushions here. And it's all hand embroidered and really quite stunning and beautiful. This peplum top also is an unusual design, and I liked the fact that it feels like you have taken an antique piece of fabric, flopped it over, and just hung it up there. That has a wonderful casualness that I love. Inside, we've also taken reference from the tablecloth here and used an Ian Mankin ticking, which is a classic for all time. And that frames that wonderful window really nicely. These chairs were an antique find that I found through another wonderful design company called Sewn here in the UK. They're known for their wicker and their rattan. These were in fact actual antiques that they had found themselves, and I thought this was a lovely accent to the room. Originally, I thought I was going to change the colour from maybe blue to a green or even a pop of red, but actually I did like the offsetting of all the green and the cream that you have here with a little bit of colour. We have an old tea canister here that was transformed into this wonderful lamp, and it's sitting on an antique bamboo little conservatory style table. Here we have another one of my finds from Lawford's, and what I wanted this room to behave as was it could be a morning room, it could be a place you come for breakfast, or you could have drinks in here with friends. But what is concealed behind here is great storage, and I was even thinking of actually keeping the doors open, because inside, I will show you here, is a treasure trove of crystal, plates and silverware, which is a really nice aspect to the room, especially if you had the doors open. It would be actually a lovely thing to even look at. So that is hidden behind these wonderful doors. And beneath here, of course, this is where you keep all your linens and other tableware. Rooms that are multifunctional here in London is actually a must. If you live in any city where space is at a premium, it's really important that your rooms can do double duty. And so this was a little area we thought could be used for computer work. You're sitting, if you remove the computer, you can also use as a serving area. So if we were to do a buffet lunch, for example, we can use this space as a serving station here. So in the meantime, we have an antique model of a ship, which I'm very keen on, anything nautical, and then a few collectibles here on the top. A really fun and traditional thing that we have in England quite often is jib doors. These are doors that are concealed within the walls, so you don't immediately notice them and they don't spoil a room, but it's feeling of a secret passage almost. This door leads me directly in to the drawing room. Welcome to my powder room. This was a room that used to be actually the laundry room here on the ground floor, but it wasn't really suitable to have as a laundry room. We moved that downstairs, so we have much more of a traditional laundry room in the basement. So here is just off the entryway and just off the kitchen. And it is supposed to resemble something you would find in a country house and to have plenty of things on the wall. I'm still curating the walls as we speak. We have lots of wonderful pieces and little finds and little curiosities on the wall. I wanted this to feel decorated and not a sterile place, which most bathrooms are. This has to have rugs on the floor, it has to have accoutrements all around. And one of the things I really like about this custom-made vanity that we've done here with a really beautiful old piece of marble that I found that really complemented the base really nicely. The taps are by a very traditional company called Drummond's, and we went for the unlacquered brass purely because it has a great patina. As it gets older and older, we do not polish those at all. No better than this wonderful framed ties of my father. My father unfortunately died about 1.5 years ago, and this was a gift from my brother of all the ties, his favourite ties that he wore and were even worn at his funeral. So this is actually a really special part of the bathroom. Come with me downstairs to our basement. We've transformed this into a bit of a family room, somewhere we can all go to relax. Big deep sofas, massive TV. This is where we go to relax. I came to fashion actually in a bit of a convoluted way. It wasn't my intention to actually start my career in fashion. Quite like a lot of other people, when they start out on their careers in life, they take their first jobs, and for me that just happened to be working in retail. I was living and working in America at the time, and when I first moved over there, I had no intention of going to university. So I actually started to work locally and learnt my sort of whole retail experience immediately when I was 18. One job led to another, and before I knew it, I was actually starting to manage retail stores. And each job gave me more and more responsibility, and I really started to think that actually I was kind of good at this. And by the time I moved back to the UK, I was starting to run a few people's businesses. I was working in cashmere, I was working in jewellery, and I really got to understand the workings of how to run your own business. When the time came, my children the youngest was 4 years old, and it was the right time for me to start my own business. And for me, it was very obvious that I was going to go into fashion. I really enjoyed fashion, I really enjoyed women's clothing, and I felt I really got an understanding of what women like and want. So I started Wiggy Kit in 2015, and it really started as a very concise little collection. The whole aim of what I was trying to do was produce a collection of really hard-working separates and dresses that will take you anywhere. It starts off really because I discovered in my own wardrobe as I was clearing it out that I had 2 summer wardrobes. One for when you're really hot and you're sort of on the beach and you're in a bikini, and then for London, when it's nice and hot, which is obviously a rare thing. I realised I didn't have anything to wear in a city or an urban kind of environment in the summer. And it got me thinking how ridiculous that was, that one should have 2 different wardrobes for the summer. And so Wiggy Kit was born. I really wanted to develop pieces that can wear every day in and around London. You can dress up, you can dress down, or literally you could throw over a bikini or go to the market wherever you are on vacation. So that was the whole idea behind it. And what started off as just a spring-summer collection slowly morphed into having also winter pieces as well. A lot of my clients were saying to me, now Wiggy, what do you wear in the winter? Because I'm absolutely stuck. I wear all your pieces during the summer, and then I don't know what to wear in the winter. And that's why I started designing winter pieces as well. So now I've been in business for about 10 years. It's growing beautifully. I have so many wonderful clients on all sides of the world, a lot in America, which really speaks to me because I used to live and work there for about 6 or 7 years, and I absolutely loved it, and it really does influence how I design today. Basements are notoriously difficult to inhabit because they're inherently quite dark and quite depressing. So it really lends itself to having this kind of cozy atmosphere. And we've gone above and beyond with the joinery in here with super glossy, deep, dark blue that really keeps the feeling of a snug, beautiful area. We have wallpaper by Paolo Moschino. Again, it's that very naturalistic print that is not too perfect, which I like. We have this original Hugo Guinness painting that I had to actually sent over from New York, and we have that framed here in the UK. But this is a really, again, lovely, naive, naturalistic piece that I really enjoy in artwork. We custom made this L-shaped sofa, so for maximum comfort. We all fight, of course, over this end of the sofa, and so that is kind of the lover's chair. So dependent on which of my children currently have a boyfriend, that is where they sit. The rest of us have to sit down here. In the center, we have a custom-made ottoman that keeps all sorts of things we want to keep hidden away, and that's actually a very useful extra bit of storage. All throughout this room, we have storage. This is where I keep all my Christmas wrapping papers and things of that nature. I'm a big hoarder of coffee table books, interior books, and so they all have to find a space in the house. This seems a better place than any in the house. Space is at a premium in London, and so we had to build in storage everywhere we looked. We have a ginormous TV here and plenty of subwoofers. So when you're here down here with a family, you really are in a cinematic kind of a setup. I found this wonderful antique tiger that's been painted actually on cloth. It even has some repairs that were done down here, and this seemed like the perfect place to put it. And picking up on the frame that pop of red, which is scattered about the room. Now, this is my favourite room in the house. It's kind of a fantasy room. It's a little jewel box. We call this the cabin room, and I'll show you why. It really is a teeny tiny space, but within this space, everything is catered for. So we have a cabin bed that was specially built in here. Again, a lot of inspiration came from New England little cabin beds that I had found. And so it feels like you're sort of on a ship. Here in the window, which is an absolute delight, is this teeny tiny bath. This is by Albion Baths, and they make the smallest little baths. They make them, I believe, in 120, 140 and 160 lengths. So if you have a teeny tiny space, this is the company that you need to go to, and it gives you a nice deep bath. And in fact, one of my daughters, this is her favorite thing to do, sit in here at the end of the day and have a luxurious bath. All the fittings are by Drummonds again in that lovely antique brass, so it gives this lovely cream space, that warmth of an antiqued finish here. This room actually, interestingly, started its life as a family bathroom. And in fact, the bath was situated here with a sink here, and then the loo was actually in this corner. And behind here, which is now where the loo and the sink is housed, used to be, in fact, a steam shower. So we've really utilised the space incredibly well. And so as to not make the space feel too claustrophobic or inhibitive in any way, what we have done is we put some glazed doors so you can look through into this lovely little jewel box of a bathroom. On another one of my trips to my local antique shop that I swore I wasn't going to buy anything in, I managed to come back with this wonderful bamboo display hanging case and this wicker chest of drawers. It really was an amazing find. I felt very lucky to have found them because rattan is actually incredibly hard to come by without them being snapped up too quickly. This was an obvious place to put a few sort of shell displays. We have our house in the Bahamas, and so I wanted to bring in that kind of slightly washed up on a desert island feel in a weird way to this space. As I said, it does feel a bit like a ship's cabin. And this is a really nice nightstand as well that also has some really good storage. This built-in cabin bed is a kind of a delight because you can really snuggle in there in the winter, and we've got some cute little books so you can sit and read on a cold winter's night. And then we have this lovely, thick, cozy ticking curtain which makes you feel nice and snug when you're tucked up in this bed. And underneath the bed we've integrated some great storage as well. As a fashion designer, of course, the dressing room is really important to house all my designs. Sadly, they don't all fit in here, hence the fact it's rather exploded. But this actually used to be an office. The previous owners had this as an office. It was actually a studio, as he was a music producer. It was kind of an awkward shaped room. And so fitting this out with wardrobes was actually a pretty difficult space. It is a wedge-shaped room, so you can imagine with joinery, there's a lot going on behind these wardrobes that really hide the shape of this room. But having a view like this over the river to be able to do your hair and your makeup has been a godsend, having had to do it before in my bedroom. It really created a lot of hassle between my husband and I. He's now really pleased that I've got my own space. Here we have also lots of drawers for things like underwear and small items, and then the rest of these wardrobes are basically all mine. Each portion of the wardrobes houses its very own types of garments. So this, for example, obviously is my dress wardrobe. Like most girls, I'm a shoeaholic, and so this is only one of the very many closets I have to house all my shoes, and girls can never have enough shoes, no matter what anyone tells you. We are in the master bedroom, and this really is, I guess, the main bedroom and the main room of the house. It has wonderful views both over the river and to our garden, and so we're really lucky in the morning we get to lie in bed, have a cup of tea and watch the rowers go past as they are doing right this moment. We had this bed custom made for us, and it was to give a sense of importance to this room. We're very lucky, we do have high ceilings, and so I wanted to make sure that it really filled the scale of the room. And it was all about a way to showcase this wonderful fabric by Lisa Fine. It was a fabric that I've been lusting after for many, many years, and it really just creates a lovely bohemian feel to the room. On the walls we have a seagrass, which is nice and natural, and again has texture, has personality, and is a great foil to any fabric. I'm a big fan actually of a shop in Palm Beach called Get the Gusto, and if you are not familiar with it, I thoroughly recommend you see it because it has so many wonderful things. This is a papier-mâché fig leaf or fiddle leaf, I believe. Painted wooden floors are also a really nice way for furniture to also pop. This is an amazing antique that I found. It's a Biedermeier style chest of drawers that really, again, I fell in love with the cracks and I fell in love with the patina. It really sung to me when I saw that. Above the commode, I found this incredible bone and mother of pearl inlay antique mirror from Robert Keim again. Again, it was a piece that I fell in love with and immediately knew that would tie in a lot of these wonderful pinks and browns and natural tones. And so this is actually a very important part of the room, and I think it really wouldn't be the room that it is without this wonderful vignette, anchored by two lamps from Best Lincoln Jones, which gives again that symmetry that I always love and crave. At the end of the bed, we have a William Yeoward settle bench with that rush seating here, which makes it that much more casual. It knocks back the grandeur of this room a little bit and gives a bit of a Scandinavian or a French country feel to it. Anchoring this space, we have this beautiful glossy dark wood antique. This really is my husband's wardrobe. Inside we keep all of his shirts and belts and things of that nature. As we walk into the master bathroom, you will see it's a cacophony of colour, print, and some pretty loud marble. Probably a bit Marmite to some people, but I think it has a great effect. We're still actually waiting for the perfect piece of artwork to go here above the mantelpiece. It's actually quite hard, as you can imagine, finding an appropriate piece of artwork that will fill the space nicely. All the sanitary ware is from Drummond's, which again is that very traditional bathroom outfitters, and I really felt like this should be a space that has the mod cons of a really luxurious, grand walk-in shower, as well as a traditional bathtub. And when you're sitting here in the bathtub, you have the perfect view over the garden and the changing seasons ahead of you. I'm actually not much of a shower person, however, this has definitely converted me. I would never take showers. In fact, I even went so far as to wash my hair over the tub, but this shower has completely changed my idea about that. I spent months, if not years, looking for the perfect antique commodes to actually turn into vanities. I really gave up after about a year. It was very hard to find exactly the right proportions with a matching pair that we could utilize in a his and hers sinks. So I then turned to a craftsman here in the UK to create these amazing commodes. We literally went over every finish, every type of polish, the way that the wood has its grain. It was a very in-depth process, but one that I'm really pleased about because we've ended up with what hopefully will be a future antique. I found actually in any house that I have decorated that drawers instead of just a cabinet underneath your vanities is what makes it so usable. It means that you don't have to really dig behind. You can literally pull out your drawers and you find exactly what you need there and then. And the depth of that is obviously very important. So we spent a lot of time making sure that it fit all the lotions and potions extremely well. And actually it houses tons and tons of products. Central to this room is this birdcage lantern from Sewn, and they have also the matching wall lanterns as well. Again, it's bringing a sense of the outdoors, it's bringing an orangery feel to it, and furnishing a bathroom so it's not clinical, that literally you can perch here and enjoy a glass of wine while someone else is in the bath and have a good chat. As a family, this home has been a real source of pride. I think whenever we have friends that come and visit us here, they're blown away by the position that we have here. It really is a unique house, and it's not something you can replicate probably ever again. So for me, the uniqueness of this house, its position on the River Thames, its beautiful aspects back and forth really is just almost an unbeatable kind of situation. But now that we have refurbished the house, we've redecorated, we've really made it our own space, the thought of anyone having this house apart from us kills me. So I don't think we will ever let this house go unless I'm forced to. It really has become such a source of joy for our family, and we relax here. It feels properly like home, and how lucky we are to have a space like this with the space that we have and the exterior space that we have, and yet still be in striking distance of all the best places in London. Thank you, Homeworthy. It's been lovely having you here, but now it's time for you to go. Bye-bye.
Today we're touring the London home and studio of painter Haidee Becker. A true artist, she believes the way she lives is simply a reflection of her passion. She doesn't decorate intentionally nor surround herself with unnecessary things. Rather, her home is dotted with rolled canvases, empty frames, and artworks done by herself and friends.
I think that you'll find that many people in the visual arts, certainly painters, certainly all the painters I've known and sculptors, where what surrounds us is really not to do with a kind of appeal of a sort of regulated house. It's a workspace. It's like a big gut where things happen, where you make things happen. They're not defined.
When she's not painting, she's studying, which explains why her living areas are covered in rows of books, her favorites being those from her father and late partner.
And my partner's, my favorite of his books, I think, is called Lady with a Laptop. And I do love that book, perhaps one of the most that he's written, but also because it's when I met him. The first time I saw him, he was reading from the book at a book event, and I fell in love with him at first sight. And then I had to work very hard for 2 years to convince him to be my partner. But he just was, I ground him down to he had no choice in the end. He just had to give in.
To watch Heidi's full home tour ad-free, where she reveals the best features of her home and tours us through her bohemian bathroom and garden, scan the QR code or click the join button below.
Hi, Homeworthy. Welcome. My name's Heidi Becker. Please come in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
My name is Heidi Becker. I live in London and work in London in Stoke Newington. I'm a painter. My partner and I moved to this sort of area in London. This is sort of northeast London about 13 years ago, and we lived in a very, very small, very charming Georgian house. Teeny house. My partner was a writer, and we decided that one of us should go out to work because it can be quite oppressive to live and work, two people in the same house 24 hours a day. So I was the one who went out to work, and I hired studios. And in 10 years, I moved 10 times. And so if you see the size of the studio, I moved with everything that's in the studio, like a snail. My partner died 7 years ago, and I was a bit torn whether to stay in the house that we had both loved so much, but going out to work every day, and the studios were inevitably sort of an hour's journey away, or to try and find a space where I could live and work. And so I started a search for a property which is wide, and in London, most of the properties, possibly unlike the United States, are narrow and tall, the houses. But this one is called a double-fronted house, and it's wide. And it took a long time, a long search, and I'd almost given up. In fact, I had resigned myself to stay in my little house and go out to work when, an agent phoned me, and he said he'd found the perfect house for me. And so I came here one day with my daughter, and my daughter took one look at it, and she said, "This is it," and she was right. And there were the loveliest couple living here. She was a painter, but she painted very small paintings, and she didn't need a studio this size. In fact, a quarter of the studio used to be hers. And he was a very creative man. He used to knit little dolls for children And he was a computer person, but he loved to knit. In any case, they sold me the house. They were very keen that I should purchase it because we seemed to have a lot in common. And I moved here on the first day of shutdown 5.5 years ago. And the neighbors were just wonderful. They were it's a very unusual area in London because it's a real community. And I've wondered why that is, because I've lived in quite a few parts of London. I moved here when I was 16 in 1966 with my parents. And I think it's because most of the houses are the same size. That's one reason, and which means that they're not very large houses. They're fairly modest houses. They're sort of basically 4-room houses. And there are restrictions on building in this area. It's a conservation area, as many parts of London are, to preserve the character of the various areas. So I think the fact that all the houses are more or less the same means that economically people are quite level, which helps. And the other reason I think it's so lovely is that ethnically it's very diverse. So we're just on the fringe of a very Orthodox Jewish area. There are lots of Turks, lots of Kurds, Muslim Kurds, and lots of English people who've lived here for years, probably centuries, families. And so that's why I chose the house. And it had potential. And the room that I'm in now, my studio, used to be 4 spaces. It used to be the previous owner's studio and their bedroom and a very wide sort of corridor with, closets, and then a huge bathroom, which was absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, I've had it divided in half. This is the entrance to my house. It is the entrance hall, and I use it as a storage space for some of the larger canvases, some of the stretchers, which are those wooden things up there which you put together to make a frame. There's some frames hanging from the ceiling. And this beautiful piece of work here was done by my son when he was 8. And everybody loves it. And I love it, of course. Here are some paintings. So this is a portrait of Tim Barlow, who is an actor who is extraordinary because he is deaf, but lip reads beautifully. And he's in, many of the great theatre companies in England, the Royal Shakespeare Company, and is a co-founder of a company called Complicity, which completely changed the direction of theatre in England into something I think they call it physical theatre. It's a sort of mixture of mime, where words are not as important as they used to be, and it's mostly movement. Usually in my house, I don't hang, in the living part of my house, I don't hang my own paintings, because once I finish work, the end of the day, I like to do other things than think about the paintings. But my dealers have decided this year, we're preparing for a show, and they've decided to do something a little bit different and to host a small, intimate event for some of their older and more trusted clients or new clients. I don't know. It isn't I who invite these people. But in any case, this is why this painting is hung here at the moment. It's a painting of delphiniums. And I must say that I didn't want to sell this one because I'm very fond of it. But as you can see, there are many paintings and they have to go often. Not always, but often. Above here are frames, and it's one easy way to store them. Saving method of storing frames. So this is my sort of library room, and it's where I study, and when I'm not painting I often study. Full of books, And so they're my books, my father's books, and my partner Clive Sinclair's books. This is a painting which is going to be in this show. It's a painting of delphiniums, and I particularly like the long rectangular paintings for this wall space. As I told you, my father was a very early lover of art, and he bought these 3 drawings. So also they're water-slide. I think there's a crayon in them, from a painter called Borchardt in what is now, or what was, East Germany. And he bought them before the Second World War, but after the war he went back to try and find the artist, and he'd completely disappeared. And I think they're some of the best things I have in my house. This portrait is a portrait I did of one of my teachers, Adrian Ryan. This is a painting by a dear friend called Stuart Helm, who I think is one of the finest unknown artists as of now, ready to be discovered artists, and I'll show you more of his work. This is a letter from Eleanor Roosevelt to my father, because in the early 20s, when he came out of university, he went to Harvard and he became a social worker. And then during the Second World War, he also volunteered to be a social worker, to work with the Red Cross as a social worker. And she wrote him a thank you letter. And he didn't have letters up in his workroom, but he had this one, which meant a lot to him. And this is where I study. I've been studying all my life. I don't retain much, unfortunately, but I keep on trying. And I'm now I've been studying Biblical Hebrew for many, many years, on and off. And I've now been studying Yiddish for quite a few years, and I absolutely love it, and I love studying. This is a small still life by Adrian Ryan, my teacher, Plate of Cherries. And these little illustrations are by my mother, Virginia Campbell, and I think they're immensely charming. I absolutely adore them. And these 2 watercolors up here are by a French artist called Mauny, Mauny. And when my father came across his work, he was considered in Paris to be as potentially famous, as good, as weighty an artist as Picasso. But of course Picasso went up and he's now completely unknown. This is a little portrait of Marcel Proust. And this beautiful turtle is by my daughter Rachel. Those 2 paintings up there are painted on plaster, like frescoes, and they're by an Italian painter called Foppiani. Well, as I said, it's a collection of 3 people, my father, my partner, and myself. But the top there are poetry books, and I can't reach it at the moment. I can get a ladder if you want me to, but I do know some poets. So, for instance, the English poet Ted Hughes was a friend of my father's. My father had a great friend, the great Israeli poet Yehuda Michai, and we all had a mutual friend, Ruth Fainlight, who's just a wonderful poet. Then over here are the books in English from the letter S, lots of Mark Twain, whom I love. And it comes down to plays. There are plays over there, Shakespeare's over there, the Russians are there. I love the Russians, of course. My favorite being Turgenev. And I have his complete works there, which were my father's originally. Now they're mine. Tolstoy, the complete works of Tolstoy. Who else I like, but Turgenev's my favorite. All of these books here by my partner, Clive Sinclair. This is a writer I've recently discovered called John McGahern. And strangely enough, I have a strange link to his wife, who was the first wife of an old friend, and I didn't know that till very recently. These are the European writers, Viennese, Eastern European writers. in this section. As for my favorite book, well, I'll have to give a toss-up between my father's and my partner's. But of my partner, my father's book is a book called Jamie, which was published both here in the United States. And my partner's, my favorite of his books, I think, is called Lady with a Laptop. And I do love that book, perhaps one of the most that he's written, but also because it's when I met him. The first time I saw him, he was reading from the book at a book event, and I fell in love with him at first sight. And then I had to work very hard for 2 years to convince him to be my partner. But he just was, I ground him down he had no choice in the end. He just had to give in. These sculptures are by my teacher, Uli Nimsch, who I think was a master and also not known, but that happens a lot in the art world, this lovely one. The glass was blown by my son, who is now a chef and a restaurateur, a restaurant co-owner. But when he was 15, he became interested in glass, and I'll show you a lot more glass when we go to the kitchen. In the summer, I open this door entirely, and unfortunately it's dying now, but it is the most beautiful hydrangea. So it comes out very, very white. There are these huge, weighty white balls sort of floating, and then they slowly turn pinkish and pale, pale green, and then this wonderful brown. And then they go sort of transparent. So it's a magnificent plant. All of the plants were planted by the previous owner. The living room, I don't use that much. Because I just don't. But I sit here sometimes with friends. When it's winter, I light a fire. This is 100% ecological fireplace. The stove itself is a model that now, I think by law in England you can only install this type, which has very little fumes. But on top, on the roof, I had installed at enormous expense a Danish filter. And not one single particle gets out in the air. And apparently, this way of burning wood, dry wood, is the most ecologically sound way of heating a house or a room, more than gas, more than oil. So I just want to justify myself. And it's apparently scientifically correct. But I have friends who come to visit me, and one of them, Jonathan, loves to light the fire. He comes to stay here, he and his wife sometimes. So we have a lot of fire burning in the winter when he's here. My partner also loved to light a fire. So here are 3 little paintings that have been hung for this event. These are obviously sardines. That is a vase with delphiniums. And here's some more little sardines round the corner. I don't design living spaces. And I think that you'll find that many people in the visual arts, certainly painters, certainly all the painters I've known and sculptors, where what surrounds us is really not to do with a kind of appeal of a sort of regulated house. It's a workspace. It's like a big gut where things happen, where you make things happen. They're not defined. So if you ask how I thought about designing it, first of all, I was helped in the construction and the proportions very much by 2 young, very, very gifted architects called Margaret Borsa and Johan. And they have a firm called Archmongers, and they're very, very gifted. But there wasn't that much to do, but they had to nevertheless open the walls, and downstairs I'll show you 2 windows which were put in, which were very important for that room because it was a dark room. The window behind me is a new window, and there's another new window that I can show you. That was done. The other choice of mine was to paint all the walls white, but that's specifically so that it would be a neutral area, not a designed area. I cannot stand to be in rooms with any color on the wall, because it's such a strong influence on, you know, what you put up. It's just not, it's the walls almost don't exist. So the bits of furniture, you'll see there's not much furniture in this house. It's just what was necessary. The sofa in the living room is a very special sofa. So my son and his then partner bought a house about, I don't know, 18, maybe more, 20 years ago. And they bought it with this sofa in it. And it was an L-shaped sofa. Beautiful, beautiful modernist Italian sofa. And it was part of they bought it, they paid for this thing. And it was the most comfortable sofa I'd ever sat in, and I just loved it. And I told my son, I'm going to buy a sofa like this. And my son said, good luck, Mum, because it will cost you about £40,000, which is about $50,000, which is absurd. But when they moved out of the house, they couldn't take it with them. And so we detached the two parts of the sofa, and I have one. So that is something that I love. But for the rest of what you've asked me, you'll see the kitchen. It's just full of drawings that my children did or artwork that my friends did. I don't tend to have my work up where I live, you know, in the kitchen or the living room, because I need, you know, that I need to get away from it. But so that's, and plates that I've picked up over the years have been given to me that I love, but it's not a sort of design concept. It's a happening, I would say. And it changes all the time because nothing is fixed. And so this is the kitchen. This refrigerator, I purchased during lockdown, so it wasn't possible to go and choose it from shops or anything. And it had the right proportion for me of a refrigerator and a freezer. So I ordered online, and it was called an integrated freezer. And I had no idea what they meant by an integrated refrigerator. I thought perhaps it was socially, you know, graceful. But no, it meant there was no front panel and no panel here. And so my daughter made these doors for me. She got some wood and she stenciled these fish on it, and I think it's rather beautiful. This piece of furniture will interest you because it belonged to my great-great-grandparents who came on my grandfather's side of the family from Virginia. And I think it's 17th, or certainly 18th century. And it's like a whole kitchen unit. So it's got these drawers. It has these things here to put flour in that they used to put flour in. And it has these wonderful extensions here for cutting and chopping bread and things. And I think it's magnificent. Up there are those blue vases, ones that my son Jacob blew. That drawing of a woman is by my son. It's called Sweating Woman. And the fish is by my son. Those two watercolors of vases are by my friend Stuart Helm. Then these are all by friends, and this is by my son. Those are by my teacher, not my kids. That is by my daughter, the shrimp. This is by my friend Stuart Helm. This is by a friend Haya Vardi, my son, another friend Danny Levy, another friend Joanna Del Moro, and so on and so forth. This is a self-portrait that my daughter did. My daughter's a singer, but she also is an artist, and she also does these wonderful lithographs. And I always think it puts Edvard Munch to shame, because I don't think anyone's portrayed sort of the angst of being alive better than my daughter has. And plants, I like plants. I love plants. Green. This tap is also Danish. and I love it. I can't tell you how much I love this tap. It's very efficient and I think very beautiful. This is something my daughter made for my partner Clive, because Clive loved Tintin, and so she made this little drawing from one of Tintin's books. And Clive loved the West. He was an expert on the American West and wrote a lot about the West and was one of the main critics of films and books about the West, the American West. So she has him on a horse, and he's with our dog Lobos, who's now very ill, and that's Clive. And these are my daughters and sons. This is my grandson, and this is my granddaughter. And these are all the plates and pots that I've just collected over the years, which have practical use, but I also like how they look. This beautiful plant used to have the most exquisite, pure pink leaves. And look what I've done to it. It's a tragedy. But perhaps someone who sees this might be able to give me advice. That would be wonderful. The rest of the plants, some are here. I'm just looking after them temporarily for my son. These are 2 mangoes that he planted the seeds because he's having some work done in his house and his apartment, and he can't have them. But the rest are just lovely plants. I always have, or usually have, some flowers or some green on the table because I love the green. I'm sure you do too. My grandson spends usually one night a week here with me. And when he leaves, you asked me about decoration. Actually, I almost have to redecorate the entire house because there's so much going on. And yes, friends, family, yes, I do see friends. I don't host big meals, but I have maybe 8, 9. Sometimes on Friday night, all my kids come, which is, you can imagine, the best possible thing for me. We usually eat here. This table actually extends, but also in the sort of my study area, that table, if there are more than 8 people, it's more comfortable to eat there. But it's never very formal, never. I love these 3 works are by Stuart Helm, my friend. I think they're beautiful. And also this little one here, the blue the angel in the blue, and on the right the Apple Day poster by Dovrat Ben Nahum, who is a wonderful, wonderful artist from Tel Aviv, from Israel. This is something my daughter made for me. She made this for my mother's funeral. My mother was from New Orleans, and on top of her casket, my daughter made this because she had a marionette theater, my mother, for the last 20 years or 30 years of her life. And as she'd been at the American Academy of Dramatic Art, she was a colleague of Jessica Tandy and Hume Cronin. They acted in these plays with her. They were absolutely charming. And this, my daughter made for me when I was looking for a studio, and I was looking and looking, and she made this extraordinary little montage of a studio with my paintings inside, which she put in. She said, this is the studio you need. So the front garden used to be paved over with what I think they call crazy paving. It's sort of marble or terrazzo or something. And the previous owners, who loved the Bauhaus and they loved Art Deco, had designed some huge planters, 2 huge planters on either side of the entrance door, where there were very exotic trees like palms and ferns. It was stunning. However, the front of the house is the side that gets the most sun. And I move with 4 trees. So one is an olive that was given to me by someone very dear to me. 1 apple was my partner's apple that he planted. 1 apple was given to me by our doctor many years ago, and the last one is a fig. And so we dug up, I didn't do it myself, but I had the front dug up, which was a huge job. It meant going through inches and inches and inches of this stone, and the earth was completely dead underneath. There wasn't even a worm. And a friend brought some wonderful compost, and it was worked, and we planted it. So now it is a little orchard, a teeny orchard in the front of the house. So you come through the middle of the orchard, and you open the door, and there is in fact a very large entrance hall in which I store a lot of the large canvases. And I do, in that area, I put up a trestle and a board, and I do a lot of the stretching of canvases and putting frames in and out of paintings, and that sort of work is done down there. Then on the left is an area which is like a library and study, where I study, I actually study there. And next to that is a living space with a fireplace, a stove. And then if you go back into the hall, you're facing the kitchen where there's a little table to eat. That's the ground floor. And there are various doors that open onto the back garden. If you go up the stairs, it's this large studio space that I'm in, a small bedroom and a small bathroom. What I love most about my home, well, actually there are two things, but I'll tell you. What I love most about my home is the light. It's flooded with light. I have light from all directions. I don't have a direct window in the south, but I, face southeast, so I get some southern sun. And that's what I love most. And the space, of course. But I also love, one of the windows in the studio is on top of what used to be a garage, which is attached to the house. And once, a few years ago for my birthday, my son made a wildflower roof. On the roof, it's like flowers in the spring. And I absolutely love that. So this is another storage space, obviously, for paintings. There was nothing there before. It was just the top of the stairs, but it's extremely useful. That's one of the big problems for, I think, all artists, is the storage. This is where I work, and usually, as I mentioned, I don't have... Well, here I have my paintings up, but I don't, on a day-to-day basis, I don't have framed paintings here. I work on paintings which I'm working on, which are not framed. And this has been hung again for this occasion, for this reception, little reception we're hosting. But I work here. I work throughout the day, but the mornings are the times when I'm strongest and I have best concentration, best energy. So I work in the mornings best, and in the afternoons I also work, but often it's a little bit more artisanal work, stretching canvases or going over paintings or varnishing paintings or things like that. But I also paint in the afternoon, depends on the light. It's interesting because my work is a little bit seasonal. So in the summer, of course, the days here are very, very long, and I have much longer to work. It's not as concentrated as it is in the winter. So in the summer I can work in the morning and maybe go out for a walk in the early afternoon and come back and work again. Whereas here the winter hours are they get very, very, we have very short days. And so I only work with daylight, natural daylight. And although there are many sources of light in this room and I love it, it's actually rather paradoxical because I work best with one source of light, because I work with shade. So I start the paintings and build them up from shade. So I need one direct light. So I have to close all the blinds, and I open them and close them depending on what I do. But I'm in good company because I recently saw a little maquette of Rembrandt's studio, and he did that too. He had lots of ways of altering the light. This is a table which has been set up for still lives. I sometimes take one little area, work on one little area, or move them to another place. In this area, I wash my paintbrushes, which is very, very important to keep their shape kept. Unfortunately, I mean, Renoir used to paint only one day with one paintbrush, and he'd throw them out because they do lose their shape, whatever you do to them, and they're worse and worse how they make them. But anyway, this is where I wash and clean up and things. And this is a portrait of my daughter, or a painting of my daughter reading. And this is called Tonking. Henry Tonks was a Royal Academy painter, and he did this to absorb the paint where you feel you need to paint over it. Absorb the paint so you can paint over it more quickly. There's a lot of tonking going on here, let me tell you. And so that I'm working on. These are more fish paintings. I've been painting a lot of fish and flowers because I've had not that many models at the moment. Sometimes it's hard to get the right model. I always love to paint my daughter, but she's a very busy person, so I have the time is very precious when she can sit for me. And this is where I keep the solvents. And this I learned from when I rented studios. You had to agree to keep your solvents in a metal box in case of a fire, that it delays the fire. And I've kept it up because I think it's a very good idea. And this is where I have drawings or tools. Lots of paper in here, lots of drawings. More paintings up there, more canvases. Lots of jugs that I use for still lives. I love everything I paint, or I wouldn't paint it. But it's different. Painting, I love, of course, painting flowers because there's often a sense of release in the shapes, They can be very large. I do very large paintings of flowers, and it's a sort of much freer gestures than when you are painting someone's head where you have to concentrate. It's very tense work. Painting flowers is not initially so tense. But painting is a strange activity because there's always an effort of trying a quest to get to something. It's a bit like being a hunter, and you sort of shoot to kill. You have to get it right, always right, always right. So the concentration is great and over sometimes long periods of time. But it's very interesting. Some portraits come very quickly. So it's really a sketch, the three heads. That came very quickly. There were three workmen who were working here and they were having a break, and I said, "Do you mind if I paint you?" It came in about 5 minutes. Whereas above the table, is my friend Stuart Helm, the painter, the artist, and he sat for that for a long time. This is a portrait of the painter Jean Hélion, who was also very well known in France in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And he was going blind. My father gave him his first shows in America, and I asked if I could paint his portrait. And I went to Paris to paint his portrait, and it was quite amazing where he lived. He lived in the 7th district in a sort of old building, a beautiful sort of like a palace, and you had to walk up and up and up the stairs. Then you had to go through a little window onto the roof, and you had to sort of walk along this little ledge along the roof, and then down into a window into his apartment, and it was the only way to get. And he was an old man; he was blind. It was quite extraordinary. And a bit like Barefoot in the Park, I think Jane Fonda and whoever it was who played, Robert Redford, they're on this little ledge on the roof. You must look out the window, though. The you can't really see how beautiful it is because there are no flowers here. But in the spring it's covered with wild flowers, poppies and daisies and all sorts of things. Beautiful. I don't usually use the word artist to describe myself, but a painter. And I don't really know why, because it's really ridiculous, because I suppose in the world I am considered an artist, but the work is in the painting. I came from a family which was just imbued in the arts. So my mother was born in 1914, and she first became an actress. She studied in New York and was in Broadway plays, and she played opposite Montgomery Clift in the first televised television play that was ever done. And in fact, she was called the first victim, because the lights were so strong then that they used that she fainted, and she was in bed for 2 or 3 days with some sort of heat. She suffered a heat stroke. In any case, then she moved to Hollywood, and she was in some films with Gary Cooper and Marilyn Monroe. And then when I was born in 1950, she developed tuberculosis, and she was an invalid for quite a long time. My father, who was 14 years her senior, was by then a writer, but in his youth he had a fantastic eye, and he traveled a lot. And in the early 20s he went to Paris, and he had an enormous liking for artists who were not known in America. And one was Picasso, for instance, one was Léger, Jean Hélion, and so on. And when he went back to America after a while, he opened a gallery in New York called the John Becker Gallery, which was way ahead of its time. So he gave Léger his first 2 exhibitions in the States, and Picasso his second and third, and lots of other people, lots of American well-known artists. He was a great friend of de Kooning's and supported a lot of people. He had some private means. His father had been a lawyer in Chicago. And but in any case, so that he helped my mother. He suggested to my mother that she illustrate some of his children's poems, and they brought out a book called New Feathers for the Old Goose. It was a charming book, and won prizes. And so they were both, and then from then on my mother dropped being an actress and became an illustrator first and then a painter. My father was always very interested in the arts, so although he had become a writer, he took me to museums, and my life was just full of paintings. I was brought up in Rome, and we went to museums a lot and so on. But I did not want to be in the arts, because neither of my parents were enormously successful. My mother didn't sell that much, my father didn't publish that many books. And although they never were bitter or they never shared this with me, that but children pick everything up, and I realized how hard it was to be an artist. And also I wanted to do something which would be more helpful to the world. So I wanted to be a doctor or a scientist, something like that. So when I finished high school, I applied to university, to all sorts of subjects. Here I finished school in England, and I applied to English universities. And I was accepted in most of them. But by the end of that long, wonderful long summer, when you finished high school and life just is before you and everything is possible, but I spent the summer painting little watercolors before going to university. And by the end of the summer, I was hooked. I was doomed. And then I went for one, I applied for an art school and I got accepted in one, and I went for one day to an art school and I absolutely hated it. I absolutely hated it. The egos moving around, what I felt about the teachers, this sort of sense of failure, you know, lots of, I'm sorry to say, not all, some teachers are just illuminated and generous and passionate as teachers and gifted as teachers, and I've had some. But some art teachers are bitter and twisted and they suffer their failure. And I just couldn't stand it, and I couldn't stand also the lack of craft in the particular art school I went to. And at that time it was, you know, in the late 60s, and there was, you know, modern expressionism, and so there wasn't much teaching of the craft, you know, how to prepare a canvas, how to draw. And my father directed me to drawing. He said, you have to learn how to draw, because once you can draw, you can do anything, but without drawing, you can do little. And so I left the art school after one whole day, and I looked around and I had various teachers. I went here to the National Gallery, which is a wonderful, huge museum of painting, probably like the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and the painting department, I mean. And I copied paintings. I copied the old masters. I copied Titian, Velázquez, Goya, Hals, Franz Hals. And I did that for quite a while, and then I met a wonderful German sculptress with whom I studied drawing, and she introduced me to another German sculptor, and he became my master. His name was Uli Nimsch, and I studied with him for 7 years. I was like an apprentice in his studio. So I would go to the studio every day, 6 or 7 days a week, and just draw the models that he was sculpting. And in the afternoon I would go home and paint, and through him I met Adrian Ryan, wonderful, wonderful painter, and I studied with him. And then slowly, as the years passed, I showed some work at the Royal Academy of Arts. They have a summer show. You can send in paintings, and if they choose them, they'll show them. And then I had, you know, slowly I worked with different dealers. It's a cruel and difficult world, and it's luck, really. And so I had many dealers, some wonderful dealers, and I was for a long time with the Redfern Gallery, a very good gallery in London. And then I had some shows with the Fine Art Society, another wonderful gallery, under the direction of Patrick Bourne. And he had a gallery of his own in Scotland, and I had a show there. And I worked with Patrick on and off for years. And then about, I don't really remember, maybe 10 years ago, Patrick and his wife Cordelia decided to open their own dealership, and they offered me a place in their dealership. And I accepted it with alacrity, because they're both wonderful dealers, and they both know a lot about painting, a lot. And I've been with them ever since. So this is my bedroom, and as you can see, and this goes to prove the point I was making to you at the beginning of our acquaintance, our conversation about artists and decor and clothes. There is no clothes cupboard in this room. These are all my clothes in this one cupboard here, this one chest of drawers. And so here you have my rooms, and that's a small portrait I painted of my daughter about 15 years ago or more, 18, 19 years ago. And this is a lovely little painting that my mother painted of me on a bed in Italy. You asked me about the design of the house, or the concept, and I told you that there really wasn't one. I mean, it doesn't mean to say that I don't care about a certain grace in the house, or a weight, a certain movement, but that's to do with painting. It's It's an aesthetic thing. It's not to do with the design to be seen by other people. It's to do with an aestheticism which is important to me on a daily basis. But also I find that the artists I know, and certainly it's true of me, I don't really dress in the same way that perhaps people who aren't painters or sculptors dress. So I don't have that many clothes, and they're not that important to me. And so all of my clothes are in this chest of drawers. I have a few hooks here on the wall, like shakers, I suppose, but I don't have a chest of, a proper closet to hang clothes. I have few, and the fewer clothes I have, the happier I am. What makes house a home for me are the people living in it. And I live here alone. I live with my dog, and my dog is very, very ill. So, unfortunately, that is a very sad reply. But if you were talking more in the terms of space, and I would say food, the kitchen, the oven, the hob, definitely food.
Today we're in London, stepping inside the wildly imaginative home of fashion designer Coco Fennell. Her space feels more like a theatrical set than a traditional house, inspired by Americana, the circus, and a love of playful spectacle. Coco's home is a fearless celebration of creativity and self-expression.
I've always loved like Americana and Elvis and fairgrounds and circuses and neon, and so like everything in this house kind of represents that. And because I used to be in that warehouse apartment, it was all brick walls, so you really could just like throw anything together and it looked great.
Every room is packed with surprises. Vintage cinema seats invite you to sit and stay a while. Old arcade artifacts spark nostalgia and joy, and dramatic circus tents blur the line between fantasy and everyday life. This is a home built around curiosity, humor, and a deep appreciation for the art of the unexpected.
Got this stunning shark head. I've just I found this company called Jolly Roger, and it makes resin animals of all different sizes, so you can get like a full size like Stegosaurus or a shark's head. And again, if I ever have loads of money, I'd like a house in the country with a garden full of dinosaurs.
Much like Coco's fashion, the interiors are bold, eccentric, and entirely unapologetic. Layered with objects that tell stories and spark conversation, nothing here is restrained, and nothing is accidental.
So in here we've got some lovely hot air balloon wallpaper for a brand I'll have to look up because I've forgotten the name. But a lot of my friends' children have this wallpaper in their bedrooms, which is quite embarrassing because most of them are under 5.
So come with us as we explore this extraordinary London home, a true treasure trove where fashion, performance, and imagination run completely free. To watch Coco's home tour ad-free, scan the QR code on screen or visit homeworthyplus.com for access to all of our latest episodes ad-free and to receive other exclusive membership perks. I'm Alison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and on this channel we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
To watch Homeworthy ad-free, visit homeworthyplus.com or scan the QR code on screen. Homeworthy Plus provides an ad-free viewing experience and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Coco Fennell. Come into my house in London. Hi, I'm Coco Fennell. I'm a clothing designer, and this is my house in London, England. So I'm a clothing designer, and I set up my label Coco Fennell in 2011 when I was 22, and I started it with the aim of just making dresses that were really, really flattering on every different body type and to be affordable. So all of my dresses are about £165 and under. And I started it with £1,000 and I've never had any investment since then. So it's just sort of grown and grown organically. And I was really lucky at the time. I think in that time, there wasn't actually that many online businesses. So like it garnered a lot of press and stuff early on. And I was really lucky, an amazing stylist who dressed Daisy Lowe, Rihanna, Pixie Lott sort of took me on quite early. And so those people wore things early doors, which just really blew everything up. This is my sitting room and got all kinds of stuff here. We've got, this is this amazing company, this Romanian company that make amazing rugs. And so I got the rug from there and then I upholstered a stool in the same thing. And then these plates are by Luke Edward Hall and I just love his illustrations. I just think they're amazing. So I've got quite a lot of his stuff in the house. I love an old ashtray and I love the Michelin Man. He's just my favourite guy ever. So I've got just a selection of sort of ashtrays and smoking stuff here. And then, of course, my beloved ketchup. I mean, this actually smells like really nice tomatoes, but I love ketchup. So someone got me this as a present. And then over here, just got stuff that I really love. There's an artist called Alex Mayhews who does these amazing mirror portraits. So she like paints stuff on mirrors. So I've got the Casper the Friendly Ghost there, and you've got Patty and Selma from Simpsons over there. And then these two are photographs by this artist called Rebecca Miller. She does a lot of photography for like bands and stuff, but I just absolutely love these two. What else have we got? We just got a pig, little pig that you can strike a match on his back. It's an essential, to scratch my back on it, which is an essential piece. Another ashtray. Another ashtrays. I don't actually smoke in here, but you know, if one did, you'd have ample things to look at to smoke in. This guy, this is my Jesus lamp. It's from a place in Brighton called Lost and Foundry Lighting, and they actually do workshops where you can like bring in a statue, like a kitsch statue, and they'll like teach you how to make it into a lamp. I haven't actually done it, but I would love to. And then this is from an old pinball machine. So it's like the backing of an old pinball machine. I've always wanted a pinball machine, but they actually take up so much room and they're really expensive. And these lamps are by my friend Alice, who has, she's called Alice Warwick, and she sources amazing vintage stuff. This fireplace was painted by my friend Belle Hutley, who's an illustrator and makes homeware, and she's incredible, and she does murals and all kinds of things. This picture of my family. These paint pots. This little frog that my husband gave me, because I love frogs. This little ceramic fat guy. That's our wedding invite, which was last week, which was illustrated by Adele Mildred, who is amazing. And then I love collecting old like medical bottles because they're just so beautiful. So I've got them everywhere and I would like to have a whole room of them at some point, but they're quite expensive. And then this is like a sort of fairground star from a designer in Brighton who I've forgotten the name of, but I will find. And this is just a repro jukebox, but I've always wanted a real one. But again, they're just really expensive, so I'm going to have to win the lottery before I get one. So this is the other side of the sitting room. This is like the more like cozy library, let's just face it, just watching TV end. And here we've got my pride and joy, which is my Tintin magazine rack, which is just like in every kid's shop growing up, there was like a Tintin rocket with all the Tintin books, and it took me like 10 years to find this, and I love it so much. And then we've got this, which was like an amazing, I think it was part of a stage set. So I bought it from a place called Vine Street Vintage in Brighton, and I just love it. I guess it was part of a theatre set. And then here we've got another religious statue, because I can't resist them, and that is also from Lost and Foundry Lighting in Brighton. And then this, I mean, all I ever want is like a house full of like massive old movie posters I just love it when you go to restaurants and stuff and they just have them all like higgledy-piggledy everywhere. And so that's the dream for the next house. And then here we've just got like a random selection of stuff. Just got the Stay Puft Man, of course, because why not? Some old DVDs just in case I ever get a player again. And then these I got on eBay. They're just like there's like 8 cinema chairs, I think, and they're all upholstered in different velvets. And I got them for like, I think it was like 200 quid for all of them. And so I've got them all over the house and they're just great. And you can move them around. If there are like more people here, you can just shift them over. Shelf of knickknacks, including this guy from the Labyrinth. Just beautiful. My spirit animal. This I just got as a wedding present from my godmother. And my friend Alice designed it with Host Home. And it's just like a fab giant lacquer tray in a heart shape. And then I painted this green because it always just reminds me of like cozy, old-fashioned libraries. And I just wanted something I really like, cocoony. And this is from House of Hackney, which I just love everything they do. I just think they're incredible. And then these guys, it took me a long time to find them. And I still have an eBay alert for giant ceramic tigers every day that I don't know how to turn off. And that's been there for like maybe 10, 15 years. And I love these guys. Here we've just got, again, some movie posters that I love. And this is like also from a designer in Brighton who makes these amazing like fairground lights. And I got this on Facebook Marketplace. The jewel in the crown for getting good, like cool, old, vintage, cheap furniture. And it's not actually supposed to be here. It's for the new house. So I had nowhere to put it, but it's going to be in my like dressing room. So I'm really excited about it. And then this is so great. A girl in lockdown messaged me and said they'd made this for a play that never actually opened. And she said, did I want it? And of course I did, because I've always wanted a Love meter. Haven't you? So I was living in a kind of warehouse flat in Shoreditch that I was renting for about 10 years before I found this house. And it was amazing, but it was like so busy, but the space was so good that I stayed there for way too long. And then when I started looking for a house, this was an area I could afford. It's called Leighton, and it's sort of in East London. And I looked at a couple of places, and then this particular house just was an absolute disarray, but it had such amazing bones, and like all of the cornicing and the floorboards and everything was just like hidden underneath other stuff. So like the carpets were like Weatherspoons, swirly 70s carpets, but underneath there were these beautiful floorboards. And so I've always liked a bit of a project. So with this house, I just knew instantly that it could be amazing. So this is the kitchen. And again, got lots of bits and bobs. I love this dresser. I got this at an auction house. I think it didn't sell, funnily enough. I seem to buy things that don't ever sell. And I got it for a deal and I absolutely love it. This is amazing. It's like an old cigarette machine and it's got all these like old cigarette packets, Players Please, which is the best packaging ever. And then we've just got some family photos and this Sports Direct bowl that I made at Pottery. And an Elvis bust because we love him. He's best. And just some like witchy candles, which I'm not very witchy, but I like the candles. And then this here, I'm gonna turn that around. It's so good. It's like an old fish and chip shop light. I tried to make some myself and they turned out absolutely terrible, but this one's really good. And then here we've got the Michelin Man again, my favourite guy, and Coca-Cola. I just love anything that looks like it should be in a diner in the 50s. And then these are Glenn Baxter plates that I love that say things like how he hated Saturday morning shopping. In here, we've got these hot air balloons, another like circusy vibe in here, a Morrow head, which I love, and then more just like painted furniture and cinema chairs, tolware lamps. Gorgeous. So I've always loved just like collecting mad stuff. So I'd already had quite a lot of things for the house when I moved in, but it had to be like renovated. So the bathroom and the kitchen and rewiring and all of that stuff had to be done. And then I just picked some like fab wallpaper for upstairs. The bathroom was a bit of a mistake. It was supposed to be like wooden floorboards and much more demure, and then I just completely ran out of money and had to use vinyl flooring, but it's actually turned out to be one of my favorite rooms. But so yeah, when I moved in, it was just really run down, just in need of love. And I don't really have a scheme when I'm putting stuff together. It's very much just like throw it all together and hope that it works. This is the hallway. We've got this stunning shark head. I've just I found this company called Jolly Roger, and it makes resin animals of all different sizes. So you can get like a full size like Stegosaurus or a shark's head. And again, if I ever have loads of money, I'd like a house in the country with a garden full of dinosaurs. And then we've got Elvis over here. And this is an Alex Mayhew's mirror painting. And then in here, this is the bathroom, which is to some a not very relaxing space, but I love it. And it's just basically I ran out of money when I was doing this room. So the floor is just vinyl. And so it's not what I expected, but I actually really love it. And then in here, we've got a disco loo. We've got this guy who holds the loo roll, who is a penguin butler. And then this is from a fairground like panel that I got on eBay. Here, we've got this amazing portrait that Tessa Maudlin did of me wearing one of my dresses, which is sort of similar to the one I'm wearing now, but slightly different. And then I've got this gorgeous man that my sister gifted me. And this is a Grayson Perry lino print, who is one of my favourite artists. I've always wanted one of his amazing pots, but again, gonna have to win the lottery. And then up here, got these amazing glasses. And actually, I bought these, and someone, unbeknownst to me, had bought me this as a gift around the same time. So when I got it, they both matched perfectly. So they must have known me pretty well. I really did just kind of throw everything together. But I think that's just like my whole family is quite like that. Like we're quite over the top and like circusy, and we love silly, fun stuff. And I've always loved it. Sort of makes sense. Like I've always loved like Americana and Elvis and fairgrounds and circuses and neon. And so like everything in this house kind of represents that. And because I used to be in that warehouse apartment, it was all brick walls. So you really could just like throw anything together and it looked great. And so I've sort of tried to do the same here. My sister has very similar tastes. It's like slightly different, but it's equally as mad. And I definitely think there was like a lot of like colour and stripes and like fun people and sing songs, and it was just like a very so it's just lots of like fun people round and like parties and stripes and yeah, so it was just sing songs, and I don't know, it was just a kind of circusy vibe, maybe. So in here we've got some lovely hot air balloon wallpaper for a brand I'll have to look up because I've forgotten the name. But a lot of my friends' children have this wallpaper in their bedrooms, which is quite embarrassing because most of them are under 5. And then I love these pictures. These were in my parents' house growing up, and they let me take them, and I love them. And this was also, this neon was a gift that I got my parents for Christmas, and they did not want it. So I took it, and I actually drove down to Christmas with the van driver who was delivering it, and we had a great time. And he told me that he invented webcam modelling, so that's nice. This my husband does not want in the new house, but I love it, and it's a French marriage dome. So in the 18th century, when French people would get married, they would present one of these domes, and then on it they would put like a card or a crown or something from the wedding as like a keepsake. And I just think they're fantastic. So I've actually just sold the house, and that is because I've just got married and we have bought a place together, because although my stuff is best, my husband kind of wants us to like start fresh together, which is amazing. So all of this stuff will be in the new place, but it'll just be a bit more dispersed. And we actually found the new place because every time we go to the park, we walk past this house and we just loved it. And so we put a note through the door asking if they ever would sell, or if they ever want to sell, to be in touch, and thought nothing of it. And then 3 days later, they said, yeah, we've actually found a place near our sons. We want to move, like, come have a look. And it was just the most magical house. And they've been there for so long. And the garden's this, like, amazing wildflower garden. And it's an old coach house, so it's all, like, higgledy-piggledy. And there's, like, an artist studio. It's just, like, really unusual and cool. And so as much as I love this house and I thought I would never leave, like, I can see that it will be really nice for us to like start fresh together. And this is the spare room, and it's got this amazing strawberry wallpaper, which I love so much. And I didn't want it to be sort of too overwhelming with everything in here. And I love these. These are my favourite things. I love an old swan planter. We actually had them at our wedding because I think they're so great. And then everything else is just like from eBay, this wonderful lady. And this I actually bought home from India when I was about 20. And then this is by Alice Gabb, and she's this amazing woman. She makes these kind of protest banners, and you can have them like any colour, any size you want. And I just think they're really great. And this is by my friend Cara Marshall, Tough Luck Studios, and she makes these amazing paintings and rugs and stuff. And I love her work. And that's pretty much it in here. So I think this house for me was like growing up a bit. So all of my 20s, as I said, I was in this like warehouse apartment, which was like parties all the time. This has been much more chilled. Like I was here, like it was lockdown time. It was, you know, meeting my husband, just having a much more chilled time. But I've always wanted to have a house that's like really welcoming, that people want to come around for dinner. I can't cook at all, but I can light a candle and I can pop some flowers in a vase. And so I've just always wanted like the house to feel really welcoming. Yeah, so this house has just been like a more, surprisingly, since it looks like a child's bedroom, it's been a more like grown-up space for me. Thanks for coming, Homeworthy. See you soon.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Sophie. Welcome to my house in London. I'm excited to show you around, so come on in.
To watch their full episode ad-free, scan the QR code on screen or click the join button below. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see. I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi, I'm Sophie Garland. I'm an interior designer and welcome to my home in London. So I got into interior design because my mother actually, growing up, she was an interior designer and we moved house a lot. We always made every house that we lived in really beautiful and fun and different. So I always loved that side of it. I actually didn't start as an interior designer. I was a teacher for a few years and then I moved over to interior design trained, worked with another designer, and then set up on my own a couple of years ago. So we moved to the area because we had lots of friends and family living here. And we didn't look for that long. We knew that we wanted a house that we could make very open plan because we had one small child and then another one came along quite soon after we moved in. So we knew we wanted to open it out so that we felt like we could kind of be around the kids but weren't feeling like we were on top of them. So we could kind of be in the kitchen and they might be in the sitting room, and we still sort of knew we weren't worried what they were doing, but we didn't sort of, we wanted to feel like we basically had space. And we moved from a much smaller house in South London up here to Northwest London. So here in the hallway, we started by putting this Hessian wallpaper, which runs the whole way up the house. And it's really lovely and just gives a kind of cozy texture in a place where I sometimes feel like the hallways can feel a bit cold and stark. So we really were keen to have this in here. We've got lots of art actually throughout the house. It's something that's quite important to us. And this is a picture by Layla Andrews. It was actually a wedding present to us. And it's just quite a fun, bold piece as you walk in the door, reflects quite nicely in the mirror. If you're in the living space, you can see it in the mirror, which is actually an antique mirror that was given to me by my mum. So she had that in one of her first houses. And then just above the radiator, just so we have a place to, I don't know, throw keys down and stuff when we walk in, we just upholstered a shelf in Schumacher dragon fabric. So here we're in the living space, so it's a double room. Here is, I would say, the main area that we sit in the evening, especially. We've got lots of art on the wall. These two pieces are by a friend of mine, Rose Electra Harris. She does beautiful, colourful screen prints and paintings, lots of pattern and flowers, so they're sort of perfect for our style throughout the house. All the furniture, actually, all the soft furniture, the sofas, the armchairs, was made specially for us, just so that we could get the right dimensions, the right style. So we've got our big sofa here is covered actually in a Romo fabric, so it's really good, really tough, very good price point. We just thought we're going to have kids jumping around on it. We didn't want it to feel too precious. And then some embroidered cushions from Susan DeLis and Kate Foreman, their fabrics. And then curtains here, which actually were the last thing to go into the room. I couldn't work out what curtains to put in. So we were probably here for about 9 months without anything. And it just makes such a big difference after we put them in. It just changed the entire space. This is from Penny Morrison. And then we've got our kidney sofa here covered in Fermoy fabric with Clarence House, which is one of my favorite fabric designers. Cushions here, some cafe curtains just so we can't be seen in. And then an ottoman, which is actually covered in a leopard print fabric. It was a fabric that my mum actually had left over and gave me. I love leopard print, so you'll see it kind of dotted around the house as we go. And then a cabinet that I found at Kempton Market. And then either side of the fireplace are two pictures which I love. I think it's Bernard Kathleen. And I basically have tried to, someone in my family has them, I've tried to find them. So I've been looking on eBay and setting up searches, and I found that quite recently on eBay and managed to get it sent from Japan, I think. On the fireplace, we have lots of things that we've kind of collected over time. So a vase that Freddie found in Italy at a market. And then these candles are by somebody, a really fantastic ceramicist in the area, actually, Bettina Ceramica. And I got those for my birthday last year. Love those. Then also actually this very sweet little pot by Freddie's cousin, Alice Garland. She makes very nice, pretty little ceramic pieces and vases and jugs. here we've got an armchair from Six the Residence, I think it's called, and then another Clarence House cushion on top. A little side table, actually I bought that when I think I was a teenager in Morocco, and it's just followed me around everywhere. And then the lamps are from Pookie, and the lampshades are from Susan DeLis. Sadly, she doesn't make those anymore because I really love them. Then these sconces on the wall from a Danish brand that I was given. And then this large mirror I actually had made for the space. So then over here, like just a continuation of our living space. Both the rugs on the floor are Rose Uniac. And actually they took us a long time also to work out. We got different rugs that were kind of patterned, and we just felt like it was too much, and we wanted it to be quite calm and the same running through the two rooms. But I do think that they are so important, because before we just had the wood for a long time and we couldn't find it, and it sort of felt a bit like we were kind of in a pub with a long, big wooden floor. And then over here we've got two armchairs that I had made in one of my favourite fabrics, which is Kit Kemp for Christopher Farr. They just add a bit of boldness to the space. We obviously have this massive bookcase, so we kind of wanted this to feel like, although it's all the same space, like a slightly separate sitting area, almost a little bit like library-ish, although in reality we don't sit down and read a lot of books here. But so we had this big bookcase made by Blockhouse Build, and we painted the back in this bright green, which is verdigris from Farrow & Ball. And then the white is just a really pretty off-white that actually I've used on all the skirting and all the doors throughout the house, which is Pointing by Farrow & Ball, which is just quite a nice warm white that I find is really good for skirting, architraves, doorways. And then these two chairs are actually maybe one of my favourite things in the house, and we found them at Retruvius, which is quite nearby here, which is a wonderful antique vintage store. And although they are a tiny bit fragile for the space, and so the kids aren't really meant to sit on them too much, which can be a little bit difficult, but they go perfectly with this big painted picture that we've got here, which actually we found in New York when we both lived there. And here, a record player, which Jesse, my 6-year-old son, and Freddie love playing, and Jesse loves dancing around to it. And then I think the bookcase is maybe the main like focal point in the room. It's such a nice, when you walk in, I think you're kind of drawn to that, and it's nice kind of funneling you in to the view through to the garden. Throughout the house, I've got quite a few photographs by my godfather, who's a wonderful photographer, and he takes lots on his travels through India. So these are two very bright, bold pictures that I just think are lovely in this room, and kind of different colours than we've got everywhere else. They really stand out. So here is the main structural work that we did in the house. So this was all on one level up here. So we lowered the floor, and we also went out into the alleyway next to the house and did a side return. It just has made such a massive difference, because obviously the ceilings are so much higher than they would have been. And also the height here is a lot higher than what we would have got if we had just continued the same level. It's also just like such a nice space, because there is so much space for the kids to like run around. They have their cars and they can zoom around on them, and it just makes our life, I don't know, so much nicer and easier to have the kind of the width and the height and feel like we're really not on top of each other. So we put in this beautiful wooden floor from the Natural Wooden Floor Company in South London. And so this was an area that we used a lot of our budget on, actually, was getting a really fantastic company who also did the bookcase to make the kitchen for us. And that just has made such a difference, being able to get the sizes that we wanted, the height that we wanted, and just exactly, you know, somewhere to store everything, a pantry cupboard. And then obviously the granite was also a really important part of the kitchen for us, to have this like beautiful green that works so well with the green of the cabinets. And actually recently we have got an artist, Eliza Downs, to create these really fun murals in next to the splashback of the oven. That we just thought that it was kind of blank wall before, and that was actually, we didn't want to have the granite continuing the whole way across, because it was quite, firstly it was a big expense, but also it was just like quite a lot, as we've got this huge island of it. But then we just felt it just looked very blank and almost like we'd sort of made a mistake. So we got her to paint these patterns in here to just add a bit of something quirky to the room. These lights above the island are from Atelier Vime, I think that's how I say it, in France. And then we've obviously got this amazing Beata Hermann light hanging over the dining table. I think lighting is so important, especially in a kitchen, to make it feel less stark, having lots of lamps and hanging lights, everything at different levels. So we've got lamps all the way around. So we've got some antique lamps with Famoy lampshades over on the side table, and then a little lamp next to the armchair from Trove, which is a really fun sweet shop on Goldbourne Road. This area here is nice. We really wanted like a sitting area, somewhere to relax in the kitchen. We possibly actually, in hindsight, maybe want a bigger sitting area and might add to it later on. But this, has been so useful. Although we're right there next to the sitting room, it's just such a nice, easy spot to sit and relax in. Again, more photography from my godfather here and also here, which is one of my favorite photos of his. And then underneath it is actually a sculpture by my aunt, who is an artist, called Edwina Sands. She does, and I'll show you throughout the house, I've got loads of prints and paintings of hers, but this is the only sculpture I've got, so I feel very lucky that I've got it. And it's actually on a turntable, so you can turn it. So if it was in the middle of the island, I'd be able to turn it around for whichever way we want it, which is quite clever. This is another painting, actually by my great aunt, Sarah Churchill, which is a very nice, peaceful beach scene. All of the hardware throughout the kitchen is from Corsten. It's just quite a lovely antique brass, and actually our switches throughout the house are from them as well. And it just is really nice. It kind of changes and ages over time, which was something very important to us, not to feel too kind of modern, because it is quite a modern space with lots of light and lots of glass. So we wanted, the hardware to be antique brass to kind of feel a bit more traditional and like it's been there for a bit longer. And then the taps are all from Perrin and Rowe, again, same antique brass. And then actually on the island, we've got lots of these high bowls darted around, which we've collected quite recently, actually. My husband, who is a florist, he has a flower company called Freddie's Flowers, and he creates, he has subscription boxes of flowers that you get every week, but he's also started recently to create these beautiful arrangements using flower frogs. So he's collected lots of these over time. So recently we went to Morocco, we picked up this, and then this is from Henry Holland. We've got ones from Feldspar, Wonky Ware, and Bettina Ceramica, the same as the candles from earlier. And then over here we've got our big dining table. We love having lots of people over, so it was important to us to have a big space that we could host. The dining chairs are from eBay, I think, actually. A lot of haggling went into this, I remember, because she wouldn't haggle. So I kept trying to haggle with her from different accounts. And then eventually she just blocked the account, I remember. Then I had to buy them from someone else. But I did get them in the end, and they're beautiful chairs and really beautifully made. And they've got Howe London fabric cushions on them. When we moved in, we decided we wanted to do it all at once. We didn't want it to be a really long, drawn-out process. So we did all the building work, and whilst the building work was going on, I created the design plan. And so a big priority was, as well as opening it up, digging down, we wanted to have a really nice kitchen, because we spend a lot of time in the kitchen. So we got a company called Blockhouse Build, who have amazing joiners, and they did a wonderful job on creating the bookcase that separates the two rooms and also the kitchen. That was I think the biggest priority budget-wise was to spend on the joinery in the kitchen and the bookcase. So they were the first priorities. So going upstairs, this is another eBay find, the wool runner. Took me quite a long time to find it. We actually originally painted the stairs this very dark green, which is studio green from Farrow & Ball, but it was all just too dark. So we've changed it to pointing and the colour pointing, and then the wool runner over the top. And then all the paintings up the stairs are actually oil paintings by my dad. So it's a really lovely place to have them. So I'm passing them every day up and down, and it's lovely that they're sort of all together and different places that he's been, different holidays that we've been on, or houses that we've lived in, or paintings of me or my mum. So it's a lovely memory to have. So this is my son Jesse's bedroom. We wanted it to feel very bright and fun for a child, but equally not be too childlike so that we didn't suddenly think at age 7 or 8 we had to redecorate the whole room. So we've just concentrated on adding lots of colour but not making it too babyish. So lots of the furniture here actually is found on eBay, Vinteria, vintage shops. We've got this, which arrived black, and we painted it in 2 blue tones. That was from Vinteria, I think. Above it is a painting by my aunt, Edwina Sands, which is just perfect for the room with the blues and the reds and the greens. Actually, this little stool here, which I love, is I found on eBay for £15 the other day. It's a vintage IKEA stool. And then we've got his big red bunk bed, which was something we were handed down from my brother, and we just painted it in Farrow & Ball in Carnadine. And then lots of just like fun cushions, a quilt that Freddie's mum made for him, some art on the wall from, it's a shop owned by Tabby Booth, the artist. Just some fun prints, and then some little reading lamps below on the bottom bunk and the top bunk from original BTC, which I love. These little plug-in lights, they're so easy. You don't have to think about rewiring or anything. They're perfect for the space. And then this is actually a picture by Jake Sutton that I was given for my christening. So it just thought it worked perfectly in here. Another of these Moroccan tables that follows me around. And then we've got this lamp, actually, I love this bobbin lamp we got quite recently, made by Thomas Vaynard, I think that's how I say his name, with a shade that is just from Sostren and green on the top. Another vintage find, we got this at an auction, this chair, and painted it dark blue and then recovered it in another Kit Kemp fabric for GP Baker. Bar, which used to be mine when I was younger. And then this desk is actually really cool. It's from Vinteria again, but it's an old Ministry of Defence desk from, I think, the 70s or the 80s, with like this kind of leather top. So I was really pleased when I found that. Curtains, which are actually my godmother, who lives in Oklahoma, has a fabric company where she's actually given me quite a lot of fabric for the house, but she also has a mattress ticking business. And she sent me over some of the mattress ticking that they use to make these curtains. The bookcase is from La Redoute, which was a really good find. They have some really great stuff if you can sift through lots and lots that they have. Just like a fun cork board from just like natural cork, which has a lovely, although you can't see it because Jesse's stuck so much on it, it has a lovely pattern throughout it and really nice. And actually, in reality, maybe I should have done the entire wall in it. That would have been quite fun. Being an interior designer, it was quite nice doing it for myself because there are obviously lots of furniture, fabrics, colours that I've really wanted to try out but haven't necessarily had the projects that I could put them into. So I was able to do that here. And also I was a little bit less precious because being my own home, I sort of could be a bit freer about the things that I chose and not worry so much about whether they might be slightly wrong or I had to change them at a later date. So I think it was a really lovely experience doing it myself and also doing it alongside my husband Freddie, who also is quite creative, and so he loved being able to help me, and we very much did it together. And then in to the master bedroom, which is painted in setting plaster. It's actually gone through a couple of changes. Originally, we did it in a pale yellow, which just didn't feel right. So then, yeah, we've done setting plaster, which is such a cozy colour. And then we've got more photos from my godfather, from his travels. And then this is, I think we bought this maybe 15 years ago from eBay for, I think it was £40. I just typed in red lacquer side table and that popped up. So we've still got that. And then a Matilda gold lamp we were given for a wedding present from some friends with a Joseph Frank fabricked shade on top. Over here, more of the same leopard print as downstairs on the ottoman, an armchair and a footstool. And I think actually this fabric was originally came from my godmother in Oklahoma as well. And then, as did this fabric, she sent me tons. I asked her if she had any green linen, and she sent me tons and tons of this green linen to make these curtains. So that was very lucky. Pretty cafe curtains, which I think are really nice in a bedroom. I think they make it feel quite soft and peaceful. We've got the same dragon print that was downstairs on the shelf above the radiator. I covered in this chaise longue, which we actually found very randomly. We were on holiday in Suffolk and we just drove past a little auction house in the middle of nowhere, and I'd been wanting one of these and we found it for like £55. It was the first thing I'd ever bid on live in an auction, and I did get a little bit flustered, I have to say. And then some bedside tables, which my mum actually bought me years ago from Lots Road Auction House, with just Pookie lamps on top, then Beata Herman fabric on the headboard, which is lovely, and then quite dramatic amongst like quite calm kind of plain curtains. I guess this is quite dramatic as well, but it's quite like a dramatic focal point in the room. With the cushion is from Trove, London, the shop on Goulburn Road again. And then actually this picture took us a while to find because it was really hard to find something that was the right size and shape for the space. And we found this from a friend of mine's has a gallery in South London called Blue Shop Gallery, which is a wonderful gallery that has lots of mainly up and coming artists, but also established artists, and such a range of mediums and styles that there's really something for everyone. And we found that there and felt very lucky when we found it because, yeah, it was really hard finding the right shape. And then this is one of my favorite pictures that my dad did. It's actually of my brother. We grew up for the first few years of our life in Devon, really, really rural Devon. And so it's a painting of him in the fields, which I love. And then this is something that we did when we came. So it was a spare room and you entered it from the hallway. So we put in these double doors because we felt like we didn't want a single door, we wanted bigger doors to make it feel a bit of a bigger, larger space, with these lovely ribbon handles. And then just goes into our walk-in wardrobe and then our bathroom. So we've got these like really long curtains, which the fabric is from the Cloth Shop, which is also nearby on Goulburn Road, which is a wonderful shop for quite like, I mean, they've got so much fabric, but a lot of it's quite inexpensive, so it's really achievable. And that was great for these, which we needed so much of. We've wallpapered the whole thing in Common Room Lucky Leaf wallpaper. And that was something I knew I wanted to wallpaper the bathroom, because I love wallpapering bathrooms. I just think it feels a lot cozier. They can often feel a bit stark with kind of hard surfaces. So we did wood on the floor, because previously we've had tiles, and I just wanted to try out wood again, just to make it feel unbathroomy, I guess. So the wallpaper, the wood, we've got a freestanding bath, which we painted in Farrow and Ball Red Earth, a really pretty blind from Penny Morrison, and then I think all the tiles are from Fired Earth, and then all of the taps and showers and everything is from, all the sanitary ware is from the Cast Iron Bath Company. The lights in the ceiling from Burlington, just quite nice globe lights for bathrooms. And then on the floor, this also has been with me forever. Have absolutely no idea where I got it from, but just like a vintage Moroccan rug. my design style, and also actually my husband Freddie's, is very colourful, to have lots of pattern and colour in the house, make it feel very fun, very cosy. We're definitely not neutral, minimalist type of people. So there's a lot going on, but that being said, we definitely didn't want it ever to feel cluttered and chaotic. So there is a lot going on, but it's also quite thought through, and there's also a lot of space around everything. So up here, this had already been done, this kind of loft extension and little pod that was put on here, which was really lucky, I think, actually, because I'm not sure we had a full house renovation in us when we were living up here. We've got a little mirror here, which I love, which I found at somewhere called Seen by Chloe, which is a really fun vintage site. And then another Camilla Perkins picture. Again, it was a wedding present. And then this picture of a boat up here is actually something that Freddie, my husband, found again in Italy in a market, and he brought it back, and I remember he put it on, we had to check it in on eBay, on EasyJet, and it just completely smashed when it came out. We actually saw the luggage guys just chucking it on, even though we'd been fragile all over it, and it smashed everywhere. So we got the glazing redone. And then in here, we've got my daughter Sadie's bedroom. She is almost 3. And this has all been just like loads of like a vintage, I think it's an eBay desk, a vintage chair from somewhere called Soap and Salvation, which is a really great site. Just like loads of different vintage, quite a lot of mid-century actually furniture. A really sweet little rug that I found, again on another vintage site. And then yellow curtains and blinds. I wanted it to be, these quite simple. They're from the Hackney Draper, this fabric is. It's a really nice, quite strong yellow with this pale green Celadon Edward Bulmer paint on the walls. And then we had this bed, because it is quite a small room, so to save space, we built the bed in under the window and then added the wardrobe here. And that, I think, is painted in Farrow & Ball's Dix Blue. And they've got one of my favourite things in the house, these little lion handles, which I love. And then also a sweet little bookcase in for her kind of little books and toys. Then the headboard is a really beautiful embroidered fabric from Liberty, London. Again, the idea in this room was to feel like it was a child's room, but it wasn't too baby-like in that we weren't going to have to redo it every few years. So I feel like this room, this will take her up to quite a high age. Another original BTC plug-in light. This cushion from Seraldo, and then actually this cushion she was given for her first birthday, I think, and it's from this amazing company in South Africa called the Big Little Store, and you can do names, you can do animals. I've just had some amazing animal ones made, and you can just give them any animal, however random, and they create the most beautiful cushions out of them. So that was quite a fun thing that we have. Again, she's got another cork board for all of her little artwork, and this little lamp I quite like. This is a vintage IKEA lamp that I found on eBay the other day. And yeah, just some shelves that we painted in, I think it's Radicchio by Farrow & Ball, just to have all of her little toys on. I guess this house feels particularly special compared to anywhere else we've lived, because we've firstly done a big renovation on it. We actually lived upstairs in the loft for the entire time that it was being built downstairs, which I don't think we would do again. But it was like a great chance to see really how everything that was being put into the house, and really manage the whole build, as well as obviously the design process afterwards. And it's the first house that we've had both our kids, and yeah, I think really like done it from scratch together. So it feels like a very special place to be and for them to grow up in. Thanks for coming Homeworthy. It's been lovely showing you around, and see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.